So we're gonna make a new jet engine. We're gonna go a lot bigger, a lot better, a lot more kick-ass. So this is a 6.5 inch diameter, 1/4 inch neck pipe, 20 inches long. Should make quite an engine compared to the last one. And the last one I only got it to the point of field testing. But this time I plan to do a little bit more with it. So I'm going to have a full intake here, high compression, hopefully. Gonna go about 6 inches in and add valves all the way around so that you can't get backflow. Then I'm going to add a housing over top, so an 8-inch roughly pipe over top of that for a section where the intake air goes into through the valves, crosses into the chamber, and then into here approximately where the actual ignition will take place, so that when you get ignition you can't push backwards back to the inlet, the intake, and then the turbine's out the back with a diffuser and everything out the back, so it can actually have a chance to produce thrust. Got the pipe for free. Yeah, that's the idea. So I'm going to mark out where I want all my valves, all the different gates inside the engine here, and then where I need to mount the bearings and everything like that. I'm going to get it all marked out. And then I'm going to start cutting the holes and setting in the valves, tapping them, screwing them in, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to work on that. Alright, so now I have where I want all my valves to go, my reed valves. The holes had to be cleaned up, they're just roughed in. But basically what it is you have this hole here, and then this valve goes over it. So when air comes in from the front, opens up, lets it through, closes when you don't want it to. Okay, so we have our inlet now, which are going to use those reed valves. We got our outlet, which lets the air from the intake side through, so it doesn't go through the inside of the pipe, right? It goes through this on the outside here, back inside the engine here to the burn chamber. And I'm going to have to put a wall in between these two on the inside and weld it in. And so to create the pressure that helps it go through those valves, I now have made my first blade for the intake out of the old saw blade. And it does fit really nice inside, just like this, just nice and smooth. A little bit of room around it without any real too much room. And not too much of an aggressive pitch to it, just enough to draw in the air. And it does work. I put it in my die grinder, and it does definitely create some wind, which means it should be pushing air, which means you'll be able to build compression. And then of course this side is more what's it going to build the pressure and the thrust. This is the burn side. It's bigger than the other side, and I'll have to just set it so it works nice. I can shorten it and play with it that way as I'd like, but I got to get my burn chamber, my flame tube inside the burn chamber. So that is how we're looking so far from one end to the other. So next, wall inside and the shroud on the outside so that you won't see these once it's covered. So I have a plate or a ring here and a ring here, and then a plate going across. Hopefully I can find that 8-inch pipe I'm looking for without blowing a ton of money on it. And then yeah, I gotta set and weld in that wall inside, which is going to be a fun weld, but that's how it's going to be. So, main, volume fan, compressor fan. This is probably going to be the plate goes inside. Bearing goes on here. Another one goes on this side, so that it's solid. And then this can free spin, and then we'll wait and counter it evenly here with the turbine. This right here is my flame tube. That's my fuel line coming out. And the whole thing sits inside there. You can't really see it. You can kind of see it there. You can see all the different holes I drilled in. It's multiple coils. The propane will come in through the line, burn inside this flame tube so it's stabilized air. And I'm going to put some intake air flows here so it can come in, but it won't be unsettled air. And then of course we'll set this so it's shorter here, of course, along here so that the turbine balances, of course. All of this goes, make sure my fuel line goes in. All of it fits right up inside the engine. Obviously no bearing mounts yet. So that blade will get welded up in. So it's going to slide just a little bit past that. Go up there. So you got the one plate in the middle here. You can see it. This there. Right in here. And then you got the shaft going through on the inside. Then you got your intake and compressor fan. And the rest of it, we can see it here. That is inside here, and there's my flame tube inside. And then I just gonna poured it off. So if we come a little bit more forward, right about there, right? So it'll be welded in, and then air, of course, from here into here doesn't backflow because we got these nice little reed valves. I got enough to go everywhere. Screw them in here to open up one direction. Won't come through, of course, the other way, or minimal if any. And then, yeah, that helps build better pressure inside here instead of just pushing back through the engine and being real lost out the front as it's trying to build pressure. So it should be able to build a much better thing. Now, I do have quite a small flame tube in there. I do have intentions of building a second large one around this one, which I can control independently with two different valves. And then, of course, this fuel line here, it's actually going to go back in through that red plate and come out of here inside the chamber. Of course, I'm going to have right about here, just a thin wrap of air, maybe a half or 3/4 inch gap that will go through between the two walls here. And then that fuel line will come out the top and then actually head off to a coupler, and then that coupler will be attached to the propane tank. And that'll be the fuel delivery system and everything like that. Now, in order to facilitate smooth operations, I do need, of course, a nice tight seal so that there's pressure, but it also has to be able to not rub so much or at all. It needs to clear it, and it does. It's just a lot of weight, so it sits down on the bottom. But I can gently buff them till they have an absolute perfect fit. But right now, for its own weight, there's very little room. Maybe I need a little bit more room for the play, but they fit inside each other really nicely. So it's just a matter of once the bearings are in and balanced and set exact center, then it's just a matter of buffing these down until they ride real nice and smooth inside.